Welcome, everybody. We're back. The Bullet Up Podcast is back for another week of sports debate with Jake and Justin. This is our 10th official episode. We're finally in the double digits. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Pretty solid, pretty solid. It's been very hot last weekend, the good
hmm
4th of July weekend, but a very hot one here in Pennsylvania, that's for sure.
Yes, it was. And we're what, 2 weeks from NBA, I believe?
2 weeks,
2 weeks from MLB, three
or two
weeks
weeks
from
from
NBA.
MLB, and I don't know. I know there's a rumor about the scrimmages possibly being broadcasted, and those would be on
hmm
July 22nd, but I'm not 100%
I don't
sure.
think, I don't know if they're going to be broadcasted. I don't think they will.
Yeah, probably not. I heard of one little rumor on it. I doubt they would do that anyways. But actually, we did it. We've had a pretty big week in the sports world. Last week, obviously, we had the Cam Newton news, and we talked about that. But literally about a half an hour before we started this show, huge piece of news came out on Patrick Mahomes. Adam Schefter reported it. Patrick Mahomes has officially signed a 10-year deal to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to talk about that in the show. We're going to talk a lot about
Mhm.
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who's better, who we think could win a Super Bowl first. We're going to talk NBA, a lot of NBA today. We're going to talk about the Lakers and the Bucks, our top five teams in the NBA right now, who we believe the future is in the NBA. Today is Zion's 20th birthday, so he'll definitely be in that discussion. And over the weekend, we had a pretty weird rumor come out about Greg Popovich possibly going to the Brooklyn Nets. So we're going to talk a little bit on that as well. But we're going to start with this pretty breaking news about Patrick Mahomes. Justin, what do you have on this 10-year deal?
So it is a 10-year deal here. I mean, I like it. It's a smart move by the Chiefs. The Chiefs needed to lock him up long term like this because if it was only a 5-year deal, they're going to be paying him for these 5 years. They'll be paying him at least 45 million each. And in 5 years, he'll still probably be the best quarterback in football. So he'll need more top money. So I think when you lock him up on one deal right now as the top paid, which will probably be around 40 to 45 million. So I'm guessing it's going to be around a 400 to 450 million dollar deal. In
Mm-hmm.
total, it will save you money if you just sign that deal now rather than making it two separate 5-year
Yeah.
deals. So the Chiefs made a fantastic decision here by making it a 10-year deal, not 5 years.
It's interesting because the Chiefs eventually are going to have a lot of players that they're going to have to sign especially on the defense with Chris Jones, and on the offensive side with Tyreek Hill because his deal's I think coming up pretty soon.
Yep.
So
Travis
somebody's
Kelce.
not going to be getting Travis Kelce deal. Obviously, somebody's going to be probably having to take a little bit of a pay cut with the money that they're probably giving Mahomes. We don't know exactly where it is, but you can probably guess it's probably going to be in the 40 to 45 million ballpark per year.
Yep.
But I think, obviously, I'm right with you. He definitely deserves it. It's smart to do it now. This is already in only 2+ years of play, probably the best quarterback in football by far. So
Most talented, at least.
Obviously the most talented, and he's probably only going to get better and better, since he's still relatively young. He's not even in his real prime yet. So, I mean, by the end of this deal, he'll probably be maybe towards the middle part of his prime. Even they could sign him in another 5 or 6 years. So it's a very smart deal. Obviously, it's good. It's great for Kansas City. They're going to be in contention as long as he's their starting quarterback and healthy. So it's a good deal, but it's a bit of a shocking one. We haven't really seen a deal this. We don't see deals like this in football. This will probably be the biggest deal in NFL history. Especially with the length too. So this is pretty big news here. We're in July. We're inching towards football season, which will be a very interesting football season because there probably won't be fans, or if there are, it won't be at full capacity. At least we're not sure if there's going to be some sort of bubble. It seems like the NFL is kind of scrambling. There's no more preseason. Obviously, that was reported over the weekend. So I guess we're gonna jump right into the regular season then. I assume.
I would think so.
That would only make sense, but it's very weird. I mean, that's going to be very, very strange for the players to jump right into competitive play. No time to make. I mean, especially with roster cuts. So the big part about preseason that's important is figuring out who you're going to sign, what guys are going to make the team. There's a lot of preseason standouts that people realize should be on the team. Now you won't really be able to do that. You're trying to judge off your own practices. So obviously we're in strange times right now, and that's just how we got to deal with it. But yeah, so
one thing is you could expand the rosters.
You could expand the rosters
rather than having a 53. You could have it like a 60 to 70 man. You could use that 75-man roster because if Corona is still this big thing and people are getting it, you kind of need those extra bodies. Especially for practicing, if somebody goes down during practice and they're not able to be there, you need those bodies. You need the bodies there and available. So who knows? Maybe they do a 75-man roster the whole year. They could opt for something like that. It's kind of too hard to tell yet because we don't know what will happen by August, September timeframe.
Yeah, no, we don't, and it's going to be a mystery, just like with the NBA, which we're going to get into later today. There's a lot of funky things that could go on, especially if some of these star players get sick. That's going to completely derail a team. If you allow teams maybe have an extra quarterback, especially if a guy like if Mahomes goes down, you need a backup quarterback and then another quarterback because Mahomes will be out for 2+ weeks with that, especially if he passes on to another quarterback if they're working out with each other. I mean, it could be disastrous. It has the high potential to be disastrous. I still would like the National Football League to attempt to have a very good season here and to attempt to at least get, maybe it won't be all 16 games by the time we roll around August, but at least somewhat of a season. So obviously that's the hope. But we're going to talk a little bit, one more topic here about the NFL before we move to the NBA, where we got a lot of our show today. So Justin, you're a big Josh Allen fan, and there's been a lot of talk lately about Josh Allen and those new look Bills, especially in that division. A lot of people think they're going to win the division fairly easily. Even with the addition of Cam Newton, they're still heavy favorites to win that division, I believe.
They will.
And we also have the reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson. So who of those two do you really think has the best shot this season of winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I would say the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen because of the schedule
Wait,
difference,
the Bills?
the division. Absolutely, because the Ravens are not there yet. The Ravens defense is good, but who's he supposed to throw the ball to when the teams contain him in the pocket like they do in the playoffs? When he plays those good defenses, he doesn't get the passing yards. He doesn't have the weapons outside. Who's he going to throw the ball to? Hollywood Brown, who's good, but he's a speed guy. He's a deep threat, but they don't have anything else outside of that. They don't have the threats to kind of make that offense click all around. So when you take away the run game, there's just nothing there. Meanwhile, the Bills have, I would say, a better defense than the Ravens, but I'd say they're pretty equal. In my opinion, they're slightly better, but I'd say they're pretty equal. Now, the Bills have the deep threat with Stephon Diggs. They got the short and mid wide receivers with John Brown and Cole Beasley. You got the run game, decent O-line. I think that offense is more all-round better than the Ravens. I wouldn't say it's a better total offense, but all-around they give you more. They have the deep threat, the short game, the run game too. I would say the Ravens' run game is better, but that pass game is just not better. So I have to give it to the Bills. And I mean, when you think about it, when is the last time a mobile quarterback won a Super Bowl? Please tell me, because never.
Patrick Mahomes is pretty mobile, in my opinion. He rushed for, 50, 60 yards in that Super Bowl?
He is not a run-first quarterback. Lamar is a straight-up run-first quarterback. When's the last time a run-first quarterback won a Super Bowl?
First of all, who led the NFL in passing touchdowns last season? It was Lamar Jackson.
Because he was in the red zone. When he's in the red zone, it's easy to throw a touchdown when you run to the outside. He catches the ball, runs to the outside, and scrambles. Teams can't keep up with that in the end zone. He's good at those 5, 10-yard passes. He has no deep threat, so teams leave the deep ball open. You can't leave a deep ball open in the red zone. That's not there. So he's built to succeed in the red zone. His problem is getting to the red zone.
Look, I mean,
but can you answer my question? Can you answer my question? When's the last time a run-first quarterback won a Super Bowl? RG3
I'm telling you, I consider Mahomes – all right, Mike Vick did not, but look, I'm not a Ravens fan, obviously. But the Ravens went 14-2 last season.
Quarterback. He's a pass-first. Yeah. So many mobile quarterbacks have dominated the regular season, and then once they get to the postseason, they fail because they do not have the arm. Patrick Mahomes is a pass-first quarterback who is an above-average runner, but he is not a run-first quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, RG3, Mike Vick, Colin Kaepernick. None of those guys were actually able to win the Super Bowl. None of them, they were able to make it to the big game. Even a Cam Newton. Cam Newton is kind of more of a pass-first quarterback, but even with the running option, he's not there. I think Josh Allen is closer to Patrick Mahomes than Lamar Jackson is in terms of full quarterback play.
What?
Because he's got the better arm. He's got the arm strength.
I just want to throw a statistic at you from last season, and I know you've heard me say this before, but Josh Allen again had one of the lowest completion percentage rates in the NFL back-to-back seasons.
It went up 8% from his rookie year.
And he was still in the bottom half of the league. He was like in the 40s his rookie year.
Went up 8% though, so improvement.
He's not going to get more than that. This Josh Allen is just an inaccurate thrower. That's just what he is.
Is that what it is, or does his wide receivers not get open for him, so he has to throw the ball away a lot? because he has no deep
He
threat.
still
How'd
had
Carson
weapons.
Wentz
He
do
had
it?
Cole
How'd
Beasley, he
Carson?
had John Brown, he had
How are they
Singletary,
supposed
he
to?
had Frank
How are they
Gore.
supposed to open field? They don't open field. How'd the Eagles' offense do when they lost Deshaun Jackson, their deep threat? They didn't have a deep threat, and they struggled on the offensive end. They were barely putting up 20
But
points in
Carson
like
Wentz
every
still threw
game.
for over 4,000 yards.
Yeah, he did. But he had them in the beginning of the year. He had all those guys open in the beginning of the year. He didn't have them at the end of the year. He was only throwing a couple more yards per game. He threw more yards in the beginning of the year.
Look, Josh Allen, solid quarterback. He's definitely a guy who's a starter in the NFL. In my opinion, he's a middle of the road quarterback in that sort of Ryan Tannehill type territory. But I don't think he's a quarterback who can ever win a Super Bowl because he's inaccurate when it counts. We saw against
inaccurate when it counts. Inaccurate when it counts.
I know he
Is
had the
that why
most
he has
game-winning
5
drives
game-winning
last
drives?
season. But what
5
happened in that
game-winning
playoff
drives?
game against
Tied
Deshaun
for
Watson?
first. What happened?
They went
is
cold.
First
He
off,
couldn't
the
complete a
refs
third
failed them because
down.
they won that game. They should have won that game if it weren't for that kickoff mess up by the
Should have,
refs.
but they
They
didn't.
should have won that game. Yeah, and there was other things like dumb coaching. Like, why are they passing the ball? That's not Josh Allen. That's on the head coach. They had an inexperienced rookie head coach. You're going to blame that on the second-year quarterback, or are you going to blame that on just inexperience altogether?
I'm blaming that
meanwhile,
on
you're
the
going up against
inexperience of the young quarterback in Josh Allen, who's
how
still learning how to
Sean
play.
McDermott? How about Sean
Sean
McDermott?
McDermott did
First-time
a
head coach.
fantastic job last season.
First
That
time, yeah,
team
he
shouldn't
did,
have
but
sniffed the playoffs.
that was his first time in the playoffs.
Sean
First time.
McDermott bailed out Josh Allen in a lot of those games because they were low-scoring games. They got that
Josh
defense
Allen
to roll.
bailed him. Josh Allen bailed out that offense because his mobility and ability to escape the pocket and still make throws. Go back to that playoff game against the Texans, 3rd and 12, play to Devin Singletary. There are 3 quarterbacks outside Josh Allen that can make that throw. Patrick Mahomes is one of them, Russell Wilson, and Carson Wentz. Those are the only 3 that have the same mobility and arm strength. Those are the only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL that have that arm strength and mobility, and that's why they are all elite.
I'm sorry, but
Josh Allen is not there
that's
yet.
That's one
he is
lucky
not there
throw
yet.
that you're taking. You're taking one lucky throw.
No, but there's more than that. Go throughout the season and go look at the Josh Allen clips. They are there. The throws like that happen for him. He has done. He's still got to put things together. His accuracy isn't there. He's still very raw, but he will get there.
First of all, and you got to look at this Ravens team. First of all, they got even better on defense this season. They got Calais Campbell in that joke trade that was great for them. They got another stud running back in the draft in Dobbins. They are loaded on both sides of the field. And Lamar Jackson is a better thrower than Josh Allen. He's a better runner.
Thrower. He is not a better thrower.
He's a way better runner. And
I didn't say he wasn't a better runner. I said better thrower.
He's a better thrower, in my opinion. He had the highest completion percentage in the NFL last season.
Because there was a reason for that. Dink and dunk passes to all his guys.
They were not all dink and dunk passes.
Yes, they were. They threw it. Who was his number 1 receiver? A tight end. Tight ends don't run more than 10 yards down the field. Who was the second best out option? Hollywood Brown, who played only a couple games. Then you get Willie Snead.
Exactly. The fact that he was able to do that with Hollywood Brown, who wasn't even healthy all season, to still throw for 36 touchdowns and have the highest completion percentage in the
36
NFL.
Touchdowns.
Matt Andrews missed some games too. That's super impressive for Lamar. That's why he's the number 2 quarterback in the NFL right now. Imagine what he's going to do this season with all those guys healthy. He's going to be even better. I bet you
there's no guys healthy. They didn't even get anything. They didn't add anything to that offense other than more run game. They are the 49ers of the AFC, built on defense and run game. The quarterback play just comes very well because they have a great offensive line who can sorry, there was a loud thunder there. What was I saying? They have a great run game with a good offensive line and great tight ends. They create holes for the run game. Mark Ingram was going off last year, and they had other good guys that were supporting that. They can run the ball heavy, and then the box gets stacked. It's a bunch of quick passes. That's how that offense works, and it was a good scheme. But it got shut down in the playoffs. If you can stack the box on them, contain Lamar in the pocket, and stay with the wide receivers, that offense gets shut down, and Lamar throws turnovers. It's what happens. When Lamar is stuck in the pocket, he cannot make the throws.
Look, Lamar Jackson, I don't want to hear anything about him not being able to make throws. If you want to watch all the stuff from last season, that guy can make throws. There's a reason
inaccuracy? Go watch the quarterback challenge at the Pro Bowl.
You're basing your argument still off of that damn quarterback challenge. That means nothing. First of all those guys take that about as seriously as as any of us playing football in the backyard. They don't take it very seriously.
Okay,
It's
but
just
once he
for
misses
fun.
10 straight throws, you don't think he's going to start trying really hard to make throws and he still missed another 10?
No, because he didn't care. He's already accomplished enough in the past season that he didn't care. And I'm sure, obviously, that Pro Bowl was like 2 weeks after they just lost to the Titans. Do you really think he was really throwing the football after that game? No, he wasn't. He was probably just devastated and wanted to rest his body, get ready for the next season because he's going to be ready this season.
Nope.
And, I mean, he's going to be even better this season. I mean, if you saw – you're talking about leaps. So you tell me that Josh Allen went up 8%. How about the leaps that Lamar Jackson took? Because, admittedly, the way you talk about Lamar Jackson is how I used to feel about him after that first season when he really couldn't throw. And then, remember last season he came right out of the gate, proved everybody wrong, and had like 2 5-touchdown games within the first 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, he was unbelievable.
No, not really. Not when you actually look at the numbers. It wasn't that good. The dude, outside the first 3 weeks, he never threw for 250 yards once. Not once.
But how many yards? He was combining. Those were the weeks where he had low passing yards. He was going over 100 yards.
He had more games of under 150 yards passing than he did over 250.
And first of all, the Ravens were blowing teams out by the end of the season, so he wasn't throwing a lot after the first half. He was just running the ball, and he was still getting over 100 yards on the ground.
Not really.
So I don't know how much of an argument.
Go back and look at his stats. When he played good teams, he struggled. The New England Patriots, 150 yards passing. San Francisco 49ers, 105 yards passing. When he played the good teams, he struggled. Games he went off, Miami Dolphins, 5 touchdowns, 324 yards. You know how many NFL quarterbacks this season threw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins? At least a handful, at least 5 quarterbacks did that. That's not that impressive to do against the Miami Dolphins defense. That was one of the worst in football last year. Outside that, he didn't throw for over 275 yards once outside that game. He didn't do much against the elite defenses. That's the problem. We saw what he did against the Titans. He struggled a lot, and they have a good defense. Lamar Jackson is, when it comes to an NFL, not many NFL players do this, but he is a stat pattern. He performs very well against the bad teams. He performs very well against. Doesn't matter, but you gotta listen. It's not the NBA, but this is the NFL. You can stat pad in the NFL as well. You're putting up stats late in the game when you're playing bad teams, and that's what he did. Games against the Dolphins, 325 yards, 5 touchdowns. Never did that again. He only did it because he was playing such a bad team. He performs well against the bad teams, but as soon as he plays an elite team,
remember that Rams game on Monday night when he had like 6 touchdowns? He had 6 touchdowns against the Rams on that Monday night game.
The Rams were not that good of a defense last year. They struggled a lot. They had very bad internal chemistry issues. That was not a good defense. Go look at the good defenses he played. New England, Seattle even held him under 150 points. Pittsburgh held him, 150 yards. Pittsburgh held him under 150 yards. All these teams did not perform well. He did not perform well against because they had elite defenses. When he played a good defense, he struggled a lot. When he played a bad defense, he went off, which made his stats look better than what he was actually playing, if you go back and look.
Look, the Ravens were blowing teams out last season. They won 14 games, and I think they had the biggest average margin of victory in the NFL. So the reason that those yards per game were a lot lower, I mean, look at a guy like Matthew Stafford. His team loses all the time, so he's averaging over 300 throwing yards, over 300 passing yards a game. So, of course, you can look at Matthew Stafford and say he's better than Lamar Jackson for that, but he's not. Obviously, that's a pretty fair argument there. Like, Lamar Jackson is throwing for less yards in those games because the games aren't close. And he's a running quarterback, so they're going to use him in that kind of run-pass option where he either hands it off to Mark Ingram or runs it himself. When they're winning by so much, why would they be throwing and risking Lamar Jackson?
And what happens when they're trying to run the RPL against a good team? It gets shut down, and he struggles immensely. He's a system. He's almost based on that system. He becomes a good quarterback, but when he has to kind of rely on his pure talent to make throws, it's not there. It's just not. He still has to develop that part of his game, just like Josh Allen still has to develop the throwing part. But until
Josh Allen's got a lot more to develop than Lamar Jackson.
They both have to. You have to admit they both have to develop their arms a lot. It's both very weak. I don't
think so. I disagree. I saw Lamar Jackson air it out a good amount of times last seson.
No,
he's got the arm build.
He did not.
He struggled immensely. There's a little bit left for Lamar, but not Josh Allen. There's about this much left, almost more than this screen page can have for him to learn for his team to win a Super Bowl. Right now, he's a Ryan Tannehill type quarterback. The best that they're going to do is maybe get into the AFC Championship.
Really? Because who was carrying his offense? Who was carrying his offense last year? Oh, right, that was Josh Allen who carried the offense.
Ryan Tannehill was carried by Derrick Henry in the NFL.
They did not have one of the best run
Very,
games in
very good
NFL.
run game. Even
No,
Frank
they
Gore
did
looked
not.
like he was 5 years younger in that offense.
Frank Gore never had a good game once. He had a couple touchdowns and a couple decent runs, couple 50-yard runs once, but
And
like
once they put Singletary into that offense, he was averaging like 70, 80 rushing yards per game.
that's not that great. He was doing okay, but that wasn't the whole thing. Josh Allen was carrying it. Derrick Henry was putting up 200 rushing yards per game. Don't even compare Ryan Tannehill to Josh Allen. That's so disrespectful to Josh Allen. Like, that's
No,
not even comparison. Ryan Tannehill was
that's
not good. Ryan Tannehill was a
in my
benefit
opinion,
of a
Ryan
good
Tannehill
run
was
game.
actually better in his games last season than Josh Allen, if you really want to look
If you're
at
going
it.
to compare something, Lamar Jackson is much more equivalent to Ryan Tannehill than Josh Allen is, just based off the fact that they're players
You shouldn't say
that
those same players in the same breath.
those players
Lamar
are the
Jackson's
same
easily top 3,
equivalent.
even if you don't like him.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're players based off their system. Josh Allen is a player that can avoid the system and make plays happen on his own. Lamar doesn't do that. Lamar's built on that run game and that great offensive line, and it sucks the team in. The Bills did not have that at all. Ryan Tannehill was a benefit of the stacked box, which is what the Ravens were facing, and the QB contained. That was just how it works. That's how it was built. That offense was built to succeed off of that. Meanwhile, Josh Allen was creating plays on his own. That system wasn't there. Sean McDermott is a defensive head coach, so he's not an offensive-minded guy. Josh Allen was struggling there for a bit because he had to create on his own. And they're both kind of inexperienced when it comes to a guy like that playoff game against the Texans. And you had Deshaun Watson, who's been in the playoffs before, and you have Bill O'Brien, who's a very experienced head coach in the NFL and college. So when it comes to that, I'm leaning the Texans. The Texans should win that game off of experience, and the Bills gave them a very good fight for being so
Yeah, they gave him a good fight,
inexperienced.
and then they choked it away.
They
They
kind
should
of
have
got
won that
robbed.
game, but they choked it because Josh Allen couldn't
They got
convert
robbed.
third down throws.
Really? Because at the end of the game in overtime, he made a 3rd and 8 play to the guy on the outside, who then juked and got it. And then he made the 3rd and 12 play to Devin Singletary. So you can't tell me he didn't convert third downs. He did.
In that
Absolutely did.
fourth quarter, the reason that the Texans were able to come back and make that huge comeback was because Josh Allen literally was missing every third down throw, and they were punting a lot because he couldn't convert.
The Bills would have won that game if that tackle happened on Deshaun Watson, too. Deshaun Watson made a fantastic play to avoid that and make that throw. Outside of that, the Bills would have won that football game.
Well, you're saying
that was
yes,
just a great
that's a
play.
big if. Obviously, if they made that tackle, it would have changed things, but also would have changed things. Josh Allen could have made a damn third down conversion in the fourth quarter.
He
He
did.
missed a
And well,
bunch
first off,
towards the end.
are we blaming Matt Ryan for the loss in the Super Bowl, or are we blaming the head coach Kyle Shanahan when they blew that lead? Who are we blaming in that game for making all those throws and missed throws?
I think. Are you talking about Garoppolo and Shanahan?
No, I'm talking about the blown game with the Falcons.
Oh, with the Falcons.
Both games.
In my opinion,
both
that's obviously Shanahan. But that is a totally different scenario because that was like 28-3. I think what was the score? It was Texans, Bills.
Both teams were winning the game. Both teams lost the lead, and both teams were throwing the ball when they shouldn't have. Who gets the blame there? The head coach does. But when it's Josh Allen, we're blaming Josh Allen instead of the head coach. That just seems like bias right there against Josh Allen.
Well, Josh Allen was missing throws. The problem with the Matt Ryan and the Falcons offense was the play calling. They were throwing on first and second down and getting sacked, whereas Josh Allen was just missing key third down throws. True. It was a completely different scenario.
They were missing throws too. If he was getting sacked, it would be the equivalent. If he was getting sacked, it would be the equivalent of running because after the sack, the clock runs. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the incomplete passes, and the clock was stopping. That's why they blew that lead, and that's why the 49ers blew that lead as well. It had nothing to do with that.
I will never understand. You love Josh Allen so much. Obviously, you're going to defend the hell out of him. But I'm
not saying he's more talented right now. But I know.
If
I'm taking a quarterback to start my franchise, and who has a better chance to win the Super Bowl, it's Josh Allen because he has the ability to throw. He has a better ability to throw than Lamar does, and Lamar is a run-first quarterback, and run-first quarterbacks do not win Super Bowls. They're great regular season performers, but they do not win Super Bowls.
Obviously, see what you're saying there, but it's completely disagreeable. Josh Allen is just not quite ready yet. I think I can see where you're talking maybe in a couple years, but I just don't think he has it. I think he's going to be one of those guys who's kind of just a journeyman game manager in the NFL, whereas Lamar Jackson is a completely different playmaker, and he's going to win a Super. I bet you that in the next 3 or 4 years, Lamar Jackson with this offense and defense could have 2 rings because they're that talented as just a team. So,
not a shot.
Time will tell. We'll have to see. If you're right, man, I will be shocked. We'll have to go back to this video and I'll have to praise you, but I don't think you're going to be right with this. I think Lamar Jackson will win a ring.
Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl 100% before Lamar Jackson. No doubt in my mind. Especially if they stay on the same team, because that Ravens team is aging and there you got some older guys there. Like Calais Campbell, this is his last year being even decent. He's fallen off a huge cliff. Not elite anymore. He's an above-average defensive rusher. He's an above-average pass rusher, but he is not elite like he was before. He was in the truly elite pass rusher. He is not there anymore. And a lot of guys on that Ravens defense is getting old. So, I mean, when you look at it, compared to this Bills team who is full of young guys, I'm taking the Bills. They also play in a much easier division. No offense to the AFC East. I
like the Patriots now. I think that they could take 1 or 2 of those games against the Bills now. And I also think that the Dolphins could take one.
Okay, the Dolphins won't because they're not starting Tua this year. And the same thing's going to happen with the Jets. The Jets, as long as they have Adam Gase, are winning 4 games tops. So when you look at that, that's easy. You're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a top 5 defense in football. You get the young Joe Burrow in that offense, which is scary. That defense sucks, but that offense is going to be scary. And the Browns have a good offense. They added Austin Hooper into there, so they got the new head coach. We'll see. I would like this year, I would say the Bills certainly have a better chance of winning their division.
Interesting. But we got to move on. We were just talking about rings there with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But the main thing that we're talking about, the league that is closest to picking a champion right now is the National Basketball Association, which will be back in about 3 weeks. And right now we saw that the latest power rankings came out from ESPN, which had the Milwaukee Bucks at number 1, the Clippers at number 2, the Lakers at number 3, the Raptors at 4, and the Rockets at 5. So that poses a big question, which obviously we have to talk about here in this show, because the 2 teams who I think we've kind of been seeing have been on sort of a downward trajectory towards each other, to facing each other, have been the Bucks and the Lakers, both as the 1 seeds in their conference. So, Justin, who do you think in a hypothetical matchup would win, Lakers or Bucks?
Bucks. Just based off of the Lakers have now lost 2 players, well, likely 2 players, assuming Dwight Howard doesn't play, and Avery Bradley already ruled himself out. So I'm going off the matchups right there. I'm taking the Bucks right now because the Bucks should be fully healthy in that matchup. I don't know what the Lakers are going to bring. Now, I'm not saying the Lakers can't win, but like just off of that, I'm going to take the Bucks. I think they are a better system. They're deeper. They got that good all-around play, great head coach. That system really fits Giannis well because it allows Giannis to succeed, and he doesn't need to take the jump shot because they have all these shooters around him. I think that'd be a good matchup. Now, I do think they could kind of slow Giannis down with AD and LeBron, but we'd see how that would go because LeBron would actually have to be playing defense, which he hasn't done much this year. So we'll see, but I mean, it will be interesting. I think it would be a good series, but I would have probably Bucks in 6 or 7. But I don't even think that's going to be the finals.
Yeah, I know. You're not high on the Lakers in the West, even with the certain new circumstances. Well, obviously, I've been high on the Lakers since July of last year when they traded for that man, Anthony Davis, number 3. I thought as soon as they got him, I was like, the Lakers with LeBron, it's still in his prime, are going to win the championship this season. And I think they're going to win it. Even in this, I think actually, believe it or not, this bubble format makes the Lakers even higher. It makes their odds even higher to win, as Anthony Davis said about a week ago. First of all, the scariest thing in the NBA is a healthy and a refreshed LeBron James. And now you compound with that a healthy and refreshed Anthony Davis, who was a little bit banged up towards the end of before quarantine came up. Now he's fully healthy. He's fully rested. The Lakers have one of the older benches in the NBA, and now all these guys are refreshed and ready to go. And you're throwing in the addition of J.R. Smith, who, whether you like it or not, is one of I think I saw this stat a week ago. He's one of like 4 players in NBA history to ever have 15 points or more in the fourth quarter of a finals game. So this guy has playoff experience and has been great in the playoffs.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
In that 2016 finals, it was extremely underrated what J.R. Smith did. He averaged around 13 and 14 a game for the series. He was clutch. He was very clutch in that series. He hit big shots. And
that was multiple years ago now. He's been out of the league for 2 years
4 years ago. 4 years ago, LeBron was still a great player. 4 years ago, Anthony Davis was still a great player. 4 years ago, Kawhi Leonard was still a great player. All these guys are still great. I'm not saying
And are
J.R. Smith's
any of them
great.
35? Only one of them is now 35 years old, and that's LeBron. And LeBron's a generational talent. You're comparing J.R. Smith to LeBron James now?
No, I'm just saying I don't think J.R. Smith has lost as much as you're saying. I think he's a better player than Avery Bradley because he's a better
No
three-point
way.
shooter.
There's a
He's a
reason
better.
Avery Bradley was in the league and J.R. Smith was not. There's a
Avery
reason
Bradley
they picked
brings more
Deion Waiters at the trade
defensively.
deadline over J.R. Smith. There's reasons he's not in the league. You don't just not end up not in the league.
Look, Avery Bradley is a better defender than J.R. Smith. I'll give you that. But the Lakers don't need defense. They have so much defense. If they want to put a defensive guard in there who's almost as good as Avery Bradley, they could put Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out there. But with LeBron, AD, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, who is still a question mark. He's not officially out of that roster yet. KCP, Danny Green, all these guys, these are world-class defenders in the NBA. It's why they were number 3 in the NBA in defensive rating this season. They probably
They
lose
were
a
they were
little
number
bit.
2 since the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But they were 18. They were 18th offensively since the trade deadlines. They were struggling offensively there.
That's what I'm saying. This is a great move for them. Now they get a guy who's an offensive threat. He can hit the 3-point shot.
They
He can also
lose a
score.
big defender. Avery Bradley
Yeah,
can guard the point guards. Then those other guys are not point guarders. They cannot guard
J.R.
the point
Smith is
guards.
an underrated defender. I've been saying this for a while. He's a
Yeah,
very
no,
underrated.
him,
He's
Danny
6'6"
Green,
for a guard.
KCP. Yes, that's fine. They can guard the shooting guards and they can guard the small forwards, but they can't guard the point guard. That's what Avery Bradley was good at. He was able to guard the point guard. LeBron certainly cannot guard a Damian Lillard or
KCP can
John
definitely
Morant.
guard the point guard. He's a very good
He
defender.
can't really stay with him that well. Not as well as Avery Bradley can. Avery Bradley is elite when it comes to shutting down point guards. And I think that was one of the biggest strengths to that team.
But look, if you're looking at these top teams in the NBA right now, the Bucks, the Clippers, the guys that are really going to be in the Lakers' way, they don't have stud point guards really at all. So there's no real – I mean, Avery Bradley is important against a team like the Houston Rockets, but the Lakers subside that with their bigs down low, so I think that kind of cancels each other out. And against the Bucks, obviously, which is the two teams we're talking about here, they have literally their point guard – they put out like George Hill, and he's like the shooting guard / point guard with Middleton. It's not like they really have a true point guard who needs to be shut down, who can dribble past anybody and score at will, like a Russell Westbrook. You know, I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, even J.R. Smith could do a fine job against a Chris Middleton, or even, obviously George Hill he'd be fine against. So I think if we're talking just strictly the Bucks here, losing Avery Bradley is not nearly as important as people think it is. I think if they lose Dwight Howard, it'll be actually pretty impactful because they need to be able to size up well against the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think the Lakers will win this series, and I think this is what the finals will be if we can complete this season. I think it'll be Lakers and Bucks, the two best teams in the NBA, in my opinion. I think that's what we're going to see, and I think the Lakers, even in this bubble format, will win five or six games.
Won't happen. I think it's
in
going to
fact,
be
the bubble helps them
Clippers will
because they
win.
don't have to go to Milwaukee for 4 out of the 7 games.
There's no it's in a bubble.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If in the bubble they won't have to go to Milwaukee for 4 out of the 7 games like they would if it was real.
They don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to go anywhere there. They don't have any home games either. It's just you don't know what's going to happen.
I think the Lakers,
could be
if you
anything.
put them on a neutral playing court, are better than the Bucks. The Bucks would have a huge advantage at home.
I don't know about that. I mean, when you look at it, I don't even think the Lakers make out of the West. I think they are going to struggle against these matchups that they'll have because they'll have to be playing a first round point guard dominant team with either the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, or the Trailblazers, and then they're going to end up playing a team like the Rockets in the second round, who would be another point, or the Thunder, who are another guard heavy team with CP3 and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Both those, I think their biggest worry is getting there. If they can get to the Western Conference Finals, I'll give you that. But I am actually worried for them because I don't know if they can guard those point guards. I think that series will go a lot longer than people expect them to go, and I think it will take a toll on the Lakers. I think it will be more wear and tear than it would be for these other teams. I think these other teams are going to be like the Clippers, for example. I think they'll handle their game matchups and win 4 or 5. They'll probably be 5-game series there. Meanwhile, the Lakers, I think they could be going 6, 7 games with some of these teams just based off of how poorly they match up with them. Now, if they do play those other teams, I think they match up much better. But against those other teams, I worry about them, which is why I think I got to give it to the Clippers out west. And then I actually don't think the Bucks make it out of the East either. I don't think Giannis is ready for that. I think whoever makes it out of the West does win, but I think the Bucks will choke. And I think I could see the Raptors. See, it's tough with this bubble. I don't know. I could see the Raptors out there. I could see. We don't know what seeding is either, so that makes it
We
tough as well.
don't.
Because we don't know who these matchups are going to be. Because like these matter because, like I
But we
said,
know that the
If
Lakers
the
and the Bucks
Lakers
are
get
going to be the
matched up
number
with
one
say,
seed.
oh yeah, but if the Lakers get matched up with the Trailblazers in the first round and the Rockets in the second round, those are two very guard-heavy teams that will definitely give them problems in 4, 6, or 7 game series. I won't say they win, but they're going to go deep series. Meanwhile, if the Clippers get easier matchups like the Thunder and I don't know who the hell else is up there. I'm trying to think or the Jazz. They get the Jazz and the Thunder, who are both teams that are going to be, Jazz are missing players, and the Thunder are a very inexperienced team. I think that would favor the Clippers then. And I think that would give them an easier schedule, and then I'd give that an advantage to the Clippers against the Lakers. There's so many key things here that are missing to make a kind of determination because I don't think either of them make it to the finals. I think they could both easily get upset. I like teams with good coaching and good defense, though, a lot of length, because I think that's what they're going to have to rely on.
It's exactly what the
rely
Lakers
on,
are.
but they're not. They don't have good coaching. They're very
I like
inexperienced
Frank
outside
Vogel.
of
I think he's done a very good job.
they're very inexperienced. That team's very inexperienced outside of LeBron. I mean, you add J.R. Smith, who's experienced, but outside of that, tell me a guy that's made a finals run before on that team.
No one. I mean, well, if you want to
But
count Dwight Howard in that 2008 season, I guess, but no one really.
yeah,
And
but like,
but think about it. The
that's why I'm
Cavs in
worried about them.
2016 really didn't have any experience outside of LeBron. I mean, Kyrie and K-Love were in
Yeah,
their
but it's
second
different.
finals.
Yeah, it's different. I'm just worried about them. There's different things. It's tough. It's tough to say, to be honest. I think it's until I see what these standings are, it's tough for me to make a prediction because I can't say with certainty who the matchups are. If that makes sense.
I see where you're coming from. Obviously, we're dealing with the two teams who will be the one seed here. But you know, what'll be interesting is to see who each of these guys are going to play in the second round. Obviously, that's the most important round because I'm with you. I think that the finals for the Lakers is going to be the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. I think that's pretty inevitable unless the only team I actually am the opposite of you though. I think the Clippers are the one of the LA teams who could be upset just because I don't think they're as talented as the Lakers, even though they're
As
deeper.
talented.
They're
They're
deeper than the
definitely as
Lakers, but their
talented.
starting five isn't as good. No one can match up with AD and LeBron.
Their starting five is much better, and their depth is much better. They may not have 2 top 5 players in the NBA right now, but they certainly have a better starting five and more depth. They don't have
I
a better.
see.
They don't have.
I
They don't have the
automatically
better.
take the Lakers starting five with just LeBron and AD over the Clippers starting five.
See, but that's just stupid. When you look at the teams, it's pretty clear when you look at the matchups. Every outside of the position, I'd say LeBron and Kawhi are almost split even when they're guarding each other at the small forward spot. And then when you get AD is going to win his matchup. But every other matchup that goes to the Clippers, that's 3-1. Even if you give LeBron the advantage over Kawhi, which would be very slight, that's 3-2 Clippers in the starting lineup there. So I'd have to give the starting five to the Clippers, and the Clippers certainly have more depth. Their sixth man is Lou Williams, and they got another shooter in Landry Shamet off the bench. Both of them I'd take over the Clippers or over the Lakers guys. You got Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench at times. You got all these guys coming off the bench that are just they actually be starters on that Lakers team. So
See,
I mean,
that's where you're wrong though. Yes, you can tell me that 3 out of the 5 Clippers are better players, but LeBron and AD are so superior to any other. I think LeBron and AD are so superior to their matchups in that starting five that it doesn't even matter. They literally cancel off any other
that's
advantages.
just stupid. If you think LeBron is that much better than Kawhi, that's crazy. I mean, you can say there's a slight advantage LeBron in that situation, but those two are the best 2 players in basketball right now. So I mean, when you're comparing them, how can you not say it's at least close? If you say it's not close, you're just
LeBron.
delusional.
I'm saying LeBron and Kawhi are close, but I think if I had AD or Paul George this season, AD blows him out of the water. AD is an MVP candidate.
Oh, he certainly does. But every player after that, the Clippers win at every position. Outside of that,
and to be honest, I would take
5, 6,
JaVale
7,
McGee
8, 9,
over
10.
over Zubac, who they've been starting.
I don't
That's
know
a
about that.
See, that's a toss-up. That's another toss-up. So I'd say Lakers have automatically 2, and then you could say it's a toss-up for the rest. And in my opinion, those matchups don't matter nearly as much as having LeBron and AD in the starting five.
I would say Zubac is more talented. The problem is Montrezl Harrell takes a lot of those minutes. He just doesn't start. Montrezl Harrell actually is a good player, but he just doesn't start, and he ends up playing more minutes than Zubac. But I mean, I'd say Zubac is a better player than McGee.
But again, that's a toss-up. Like, I could tell you that, but 50 other people would say it's McGee, and 50 other people might say it's Zubac. Whereas if it's
Same thing
LeBron
would be
and
with LeBron.
I
Same thing
think
would be
80 to
LeBron and Kyrie.
90% of people would take LeBron over Kawhi right now.
No way. I mean, it would be
I guarantee
close,
you that.
maybe 55 to 45, but it would not be that. No chance.
And even if it's 55 to 60, like you're saying, I bet you if I gave 80 and Paul George, would be 100% AD.
I would not say that.
Huge. The Clippers are at a huge disadvantage in that matchup, in my opinion. I just think they don't match up well against the Lakers at all because.
Is that why they beat them 3 out of 4 times?
Well, they beat them 2 out of 3 times. And
that's what I mean.
First of all those games were really, really close. And the one game in the end, when the Lakers were finally figuring it out, they won. Middle of the season
because
games
Avery Bradley
way
dropped
more.
26 points in the third quarter at 16, while LeBron scored 0. Avery Bradley carried that game. That was the Avery Bradley game. Outside of that, they weren't winning any of the games.
First of all,
and
I don't count
Avery Bradley.
The first game of the season does not matter. The first game
doesn't matter. You played. If anything, it should have been an advantage to the Lakers because the Lakers had returning players there. The 2 best players.
They were both totally 2 revamped teams.
LeBron still played with some of those guys. He still had Kuzma and other guys on that team that he played with before. Rondo was there. They had other guys. Meanwhile,
that whole starting 5 was different.
No, it was not.
Outside of LeBron and JaVale McGee, that it was AD, it was Danny Green, and it was
they started Rondo.
It was Rondo. Yeah,
Rondo played there last year.
We all know now that Rajon Rondo should not be a starter in the NBA.
It doesn't matter. That first game, you go into that game and you look at it. The Lakers had returning players. Meanwhile, the 2 best players on the Clippers were brand new players. You know how Kawhi and Paul George were going to fit into that.
They still had Montrezl. See, like you talking about a couple players with the Lakers, but the Clippers still had Montrezl Harrell returning. They still had Zubac from the previous season. They still had Lou Will. They still had a lot of those guys.
3 guys. Wasn't the best player on the team?
No, but honestly, there's a lot of people who are saying AD is the best player in the Lakers. I think they're wrong, but AD is easily a top 5, top 6 player in the NBA. And installing him into that lineup is an extreme change from the previous season where they were playing with Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart as the starters with LeBron. So I think that's an invalid argument to say that the Lakers were a lot different opening day than the Clippers. They were both completely different teams. I think that was a coin toss game, and the Clippers won that coin toss. And Christmas Day, it was just a deadly close game, and the Clippers won, and I'll give them that. But then the Lakers came and whooped their tail off in March. And I think they would whoop their tail off again if they had played that 4th game before the season ended.
I don't think so.
I think they're going to whoop their tail on that July 30th game.
No way. We'll see when that comes. We have time still.
But we shall see.
I got some news here. Patrick Mahomes' deal 10-year extension is worth over $400 million. It's actually a 12-year deal because of the 2 years he already has left, and it will become the highest paid. He'll become the highest paid player in sports as it will reach over the $427.6 million that Mike Trout signed for. So it will be the highest paid.
Biggest contract. Yeah.
He'll be the highest paid player in all of sports now. But we'll see. The full numbers haven't been out yet, but that's just what's been leaked so far.
That's the leak so far. Yeah, that's pretty big. Obviously, I think we talked about that at the start of the show. That's pretty. We did expect that number to be pretty large, and I think that makes sense. I mean, there was a couple fake leaks going out there about $500+ million, but no one's getting Dak required money, even if you're Patrick Mahomes. It's just too much for NFL teams to handle. You can't sign enough players. But I think in that $40 million range is exactly where we'd expect that to be, and that's a big deal, huge deal, biggest deal in sports really ever. In my opinion, with this 10-year NFL deal, we don't see that in the NFL, so it's huge. It's a shocker. I mean, it's a bit of a shocker. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be, but I don't think a lot of us expected 10 years.
I think it was more of a shock of that it happened right now out of anything. I think people weren't expecting it to happen now.
Yeah, it's like we've been in the middle of chaos, and we see something like this go. It's like it's strange to see something like this go down, and with all this going on, especially. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see contract extensions all the time in the off season, but it's a weird time to kind of negotiate something like that big.
Everyone's focusing on the return of other sports, not really focusing on
and then all that out of nowhere, the NFL with a huge thing with that with Patrick Mahomes. But expected. We talked about that earlier. Now we got clarification on the deal. But we're going to jump right back here into the NBA. So we had a birthday today. It's not just Patrick Mahomes Day. It's also the 20th birthday of Zion Williamson. Shocking to know that he's actually 20, only about a year older than us. And he's 20, and he's been in this league this has been his only season. He's played 19 games, but he already seems like he's becoming slowly the face of basketball, slowly but surely. He's already a 2K21 cover athlete. He's been one of the biggest box office names in this sport. So the question that we had today is, who do you think is better going to represent the future of the NBA, kind of like LeBron is right now? Do you think it's Zion Williamson or that guy from Dallas, Luka Doncic, the guy who's been an MVP candidate this season?
It certainly has to be Luka. I mean, that's like saying, are you going to take LeBron James or Blake Griffin here? I mean, they're two different players. You're taking the all-around superstar talent rather than a guy that's going to give you 22, 10, and 4. I'm going to take the guy that's giving me 28, 10, and 10. Like that's just a simple question here. It's not that hard. Luka will be the face of the NBA just based off of there's nothing he can't do. He can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass, he can rebound, he can finish down low, he can dunk. There's nothing the guy can't do. He can do a little bit of everything. Meanwhile, Zion, I'm not sold he's going to stay healthy his whole career. I've only seen 20 games.
That's
I'm not
fair.
He could be good, but right now I see him as Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin is a guy that's very talented, was able to put up 25 points per game, 10 rebounds, a couple assists, but he was nothing more than that because of injuries. And honestly, I think Zion's going to be the same way just because guys with that build don't last long. He's got to slim down. Like, one of his strengths is how big he is, but at the same time, with that body, with that weight on those knees, that just doesn't last well. So I'm worried about that. I'm not sold on Zion. I need to see more from Zion to say that. I've seen Luka do everything right now. I've seen him pass, shoot, dribble. I've seen him do everything. I know he can at least be solid at all of that. He may not be a superstar at shooting throughout his career, but he can at least be a good shooter right now. I haven't seen Zion be even a half-decent shooter. I've seen him hit a couple threes, but I haven't seen him be a good shooter anymore. I need more from Zion before I'm sold on him. I don't know why people are so hyped up about him. Like, I get he's a big name, but, like, we haven't seen anything. People are acting like this is his 4th year. He's been in the MVP talks for 4 years now. He's an all-star every year. Like, that didn't happen yet. He's only played, 19 games? And people are saying he's the next LeBron James. Like, could he be? Absolutely. But is he there yet? Absolutely not. He's only played 19 games.
You know me, I'm a huge Zion Williamson fan. I have been since his days at Duke, since I saw the highlight tapes of him in high school making ridiculous dunks. I love Zion Williamson. And you might be right. Luka Doncic, I think, is a better overall player than Zion is. But in the NBA, the number one thing that I've noticed is box office players are always the best option. If you put Zion on the New York Knicks versus putting Luka Doncic on the New York Knicks, you're going to attract way more free agents. Way more players are going to play with Zion Williamson than they will with Luka Doncic for one simple reason. He's box office, and he's a great player too. He's already in his
Why
first
would somebody
19...
else want to go play with Zion when they can go play with a guy who's a generational talent that can do everything rather than a guy
Zion Williamson is also a generational talent.
Yes, but he's not a generation talent in the fact that he can do everything. Zion's not going to bring up the ball and pass like Luka can. Luka can shoot. Zion's not there yet with his shooting. Luka can score the same way Zion can.
In terms of winning basketball, Zion is a better player because he does.
Really?
He reminds me of sort of a Kawhi type player.
When he came back? How'd the Pelicans do when he came back?
They've been 11-8, but the plus and minus with him on the floor is unbelievable. He's got it was like one of the highest in the league when he was on the floor with Brandon Ingram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look, just let me make my case for Zion Williamson here. So first of all, unlike Luka, Zion doesn't try to do everything and control the game and take away from other players, which is what sometimes Luka does, which is why a big knack on Luka Doncic. He tries to do too much sometimes, and he kind of takes over the game and it throws everybody else off. Whereas with Zion, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting A+ defense. You're getting A+ scoring in the paint. He's shown the ability to shoot three-point shot. He's a valid passer, and he's not going to take over the game and take over every dribble and every pass. he's going to let other players flush through their games. That's why the Pelicans have had a lot of success since he's come back. That's why I think they're going to grab that 8th seed when we come back here in the bubble. With Zion on the floor, the Pelicans are a better team than the Dallas Mavericks are with Luka Doncic. And it's just because
crazy to say.
He does exactly what he's the best at what he does, and he doesn't do everything. He's only, obviously, like you said, he doesn't do as much as Luka Doncic, but what he does, amazing, he does way better than Luka Doncic. He reminds me in a lot of ways of Michael Jordan and Kawhi Leonard because
what?
He reminds me of those two players because Michael Jordan was a good passer, right? He was a good passer and a good rebounder, but he was not generational in that. But he was a generational, unbelievable scorer and defender. Zion Williamson is the same way, just like Kawhi Leonard. These guys are unbelievable scorers. Zion Williamson's going to score pretty much everywhere.
Those guys are guards and small forwards. Zion's a power forward, maybe center if you want to push him there. So you can't even – how are you even comparing them? It doesn't even make sense.
I'm just saying, based on their game, they're very similar. The way that they can score and the way that they can defend.
Yeah, you know what? Joel Embiid's kind of the same way. Best defender in the league for a big man, and he can score at will. So, I mean, I guess that means he's Michael Jordan
But
too,
Zion
right?
can shoot the ball. That's what I'm saying. He's shooting over 40%
So can Embiid. Embiid's shooting 35% from three, just like Zion is. So how can you –
Okay, Zion is only 6'8". He's not like 7-footer. He's only 6'8". He's only like 2 inches taller than Michael Jordan.
Your argument is just – that's so insane. That doesn't even make sense.
Look,
to compare those guys, that doesn't make sense. Like, at least make a fair comparison. That's why I said a guy like Blake Griffin is a better comparison. A guy that can kind of shoot, huge dunker, big name, flashy when he needs to be. But, I mean, he's nothing more than that. And injuries are going to probably ruin his career, unfortunately, which sucks. He's very talented. But, I mean, unless he slims down. But then if he slims down,
did you see him in that picture in the
paint.
workout room? He looked jacked. He looked like he had lost 15 pounds and was all muscle.
It doesn't matter if it's all muscle. Guys that weigh that much with the weight on their knees doesn't help. That hurts them.
Look, Zion, as much as I like Luka Doncic, and I like Luka, obviously, and I know you like him too, and he's a great NBA player, but the guys that NBA players are going to gravitate towards a guy like Zion, who's a much better defender. He's not going to control the game, and he's going to do what he does at an extremely high level. I think these two guys are going to battle for MVP over the next 5 to 10 years here.
How does Luka control the game?
And I think Zion's going to win more of them.
That just doesn't make sense. Of course, Luka's going to control the game. He's a point guard. He brings the ball up. Zion's not a point guard. He's a power forward. Kawhi controls the game. Michael Jordan controlled the game. That's what those guys do. So how are you comparing Zion to him then? That doesn't make sense.
Because my problem with Luka, and this is a problem that a lot of people have with Luka, he's a point guard, but as a point guard, you don't need to control everything. Luka's kind of reminding me of Russell Westbrook in a way, in an annoying way where he's kind of going after every rebound. He's going for every assist, going for every point. You know, he's almost averaging a triple-double like Russell.
He's closer to LeBron James than anything else. He's basically a mirror image of LeBron James right now.
I can't even put those two in the same breath because I'm a big LeBron fan and Luka Doncic.
They're the same players. They're huge guys playing point guard that are decent shooters. They're not great shooters, but they're decent shooters. Both of them are decent shooters. Their playmaking's outstanding. They're great finishers. The only thing that he has on him is he's a little bigger. LeBron's a little bigger, and LeBron has the leadership and the kind of – he's more of a veteran. He's been around longer, so he knows more.
Zion Williamson, just like LeBron, was the highest basically ever prospect coming out of high school since LeBron. Zion Williamson was that. That's immediately started those LeBron conversations because he's such a big box office.
It doesn't make a difference where you were picked or anything. It matters how your game translates to the NBA. And I don't know.
And Zion translates more to wins than Luka.
You saw 19 games. You can't judge off of that. You need more than 19 games. If you're judging off of 19 games, anybody could be the best player in the league because anybody could have 19 good games. You have
He's
no
only
idea.
going to get better and better.
You don't know that. You can't guarantee that.
No one can stop. First of all, Luka can be stopped. In my opinion, Luka can be stopped. Zion, if he's rolling, no one can stop him. No one's stopping 270 pounds, 6'8" with that.
Joel Embiid is stopping him. Rudy Gobert is stopping him. And any elite defensive center in the NBA is able to stop him. He's not going up against kids anymore like he was in college. Wait till he has to go inside against Anthony Davis.
But he's dominant. He dominated in those 19 games. He dominated.
He dominated, but he wasn't playing great opponents. Go back and look at those games. He never played any all-defensive first-team guys out there against him. He was playing a bunch of scrubs.
What? He was playing the top talent in the NBA.
He
He
was
played
not.
against LeBron James twice, and he scored like
Yeah,
26
and
plus
how?
points.
No, dude, you're no. Zion is. You can't go off of 19 games. You just can't.
You're obviously the question is who's the future of the NBA, and I'm telling you, in the future, we're all going to be talking way more about Zion Williamson than we ever will about Luka Doncic because Zion's going to be winning more games. He's going to be playing better, and the Pelicans, in my opinion, are going to be a team that's going to be at the top of the West here in a few years solely because of Zion Williamson. He's that good.
No, won't happen.
Whereas Luka, I think Luka's a 6 seed right now. I think Luka, with even the way he's playing with Kristaps, they're probably a 5-6 seed the way he plays the game. He's going to have to change the way he plays for them to really make a jump. Zion just plays the game in a
because the
way that
Pelicans have a
allows
better
everybody to
roster.
succeed.
Take Luka and Zion off this team. Which team wins more games? The Pelicans.
In
Do.
my
The Pelicans
opinion,
have
it's
a better
Dallas
team.
just because it's Dallas because of Kristaps. They
You're
got
gonna
a
say
better team.
Kristaps by himself is better than Brandon Ingram, J.J. Redick, Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball, Jackson Hayes. They have all these guys. Derek Favors. Who they have so many players on that Pelicans team. They were a solid team already. They were 500. You take that when Luka didn't
Why
play.
did Anthony Davis want to leave?
When Luka missed games, he didn't. When Luka missed the games, the Mavericks team was 4 games under 500 without him. 4 games under 500.
Yeah, and the Pelicans were trash without Zion. They were in a playoff team. Now all of a sudden they're in
Exactly.
the
So
playoff
your argument doesn't
conversation.
make sense. Your
But
argument
I'm
doesn't
just
make sense.
saying, you asked me.
You said
First of all,
Luka's only good because of the team he plays on. Like you said, that's the limit right there. If Luka had better players around him, he'd be better.
They're perfectly set up for a guy like Luka because they have a lot of shooters. It's kind of like LeBron is set up, yes, but in my opinion, Luka doesn't play the LeBron role very well. He plays more of a Russell Westbrook role where he kind of controls the ball too much.
I can't listen to you. You're comparing Zion Williamson, who's played 19 games, to Michael Jordan, Kawhi Leonard, and LeBron James. Just stop talking now.
It's true, though. If you see the way they play, and
talking.
I'll tell you, in the future, you're going to be talking. There's going to be a lot of conversations about
They
Zion.
They don't play the same. You could
their
say
defense.
You could see they could end up being like elite players. He could be in those names eventually, possibly. But right now, there is no way he can. They don't play some real games. Zion's a back down big four. That's what he plays as. He doesn't play as a point. All those guys bring up the ball. Every guy you've compared him to is a guy that brings up the ball, has great passing ability, and is a fantastic scorer from the outside and the inside. Zion can't do that. Zion's a great scorer on the inside there, and his defense is good, but he can't do the rest of that. And Zion's defense has not translated well to the NBA. Now, he was out of shape when he first came back, so that hurt him.
I'm telling you, he's going to be average 2+ steals, 2+ blocks a game.
He was not, but he was not an elite defender there for when he came back. I mean, most of those games, he had 0 steals and 0 blocks in some of those games he was playing. He wasn't making much. Now, obviously, he was out of shape, so it makes sense why he didn't. But, I mean, when you're looking at that, it wasn't that great.
I think when we see in the future, in 10, 15 years, we're going to be talking about Zion Williamson as one of the all-time greats in the NBA. I think he's that good. And I know it's very early to say that, but he's already off to the best scoring start since Michael Jordan, the guy that I've been comparing him to in this segment. And I think there's no other reason for that than saying that he's a lot like MJ.
Can we move on? I'm not listening to you compare Zion Williamson to the 2 best players of all time after 19 games in the NBA. Just move on. That's how you lose
10,
viewers.
15 years, we will be talking about that.
No.
All right. Well, the last topic that we're going to be talking about on the show today is NBA as well. So over the weekend, we saw a pretty big spark in news here with the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are apparently preparing to make a Godfather-type offer to Greg Popovich. And that raised the big question is, how do you think Greg Popovich would fit with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving as
terrible? Awful. That would not work at all. How would you expect that to work? Greg Popovich is a guy that gets players, develops them to be good. He's very strict, very aggressive as a coach, likes to kind of be not aggressive, what's the word? Kind of almost verbally assault his players, I guess, to the point.
Yeah, that's what happened with Kawhi.
With Kawhi, and he didn't like that. And when you get Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, 2 of the softest NBA players in basketball, you think that's going to work? That's crazy. No way that works. Absolutely not. No way. That'd be a disaster. That's a way how you ruin Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and Greg Popovich's career right there. If you team them up, that would be bad. That'd be bad for all 3 of them.
I think for the first time in the show today, I actually agree with you on this. The only thing I will say, look, Kevin Durant and Kyrie are two of the most problematic players in the NBA. But if look at what the Spurs did with Kawhi Leonard, they got rid of him. If there was a way that the Nets could possibly get rid of those two stars and build more around their other core players like Dinwiddie, like LeVert, like Jared Allen, I think Greg Popovich would be a great fit for the previous Nets team, like last year's Nets team, without these two head case makers on them with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So I don't know if you agree with that, but if they could trade away,
I agree with that.
I think with the team that the
Like
Nets had last year, if you had given Greg Popovich that roster, they'd be a top 5, top 4 team in the East, possibly. Because
if
he's
I'm Greg
that good of
Popovich, I want to go to the Timberwolves. Him
I
coaching
agree. I
with
think
all
that'd
those
be a
young
great
guys,
place for him.
he needs to go. He needs to leave. I agree with you. He needs to leave San Antonio. I think he's kind of done there. I think you can't just last somewhere forever. I mean, for me, a prominent example would be Andy Reid
Doc
with the
Rivers.
Eagles. Andy Reid's a great, perfect. That's
Andy
an
Reid.
NBA related. For me, it's easy to relate to Andy Reid because he was such a great coach here. But like, eventually, your time's up. Same thing happened with Doc Rivers in Boston. Eventually, your time's up. You can't last in one place forever. So I mean, Pop is gonna have to go somewhere. I think he needs to go somewhere with young talent. Minnesota as D'Lo, Cat, a bunch of other young guys coming up. I could see him in. I'm trying to think of a bad team that's talented. Maybe even Phoenix, although I like Monty Williams a lot there. I think Phoenix would be a good fit for him. I think he could develop Booker and Ayton into being kind of like a good duo there. But I would not go to a team with two established superstars like that, especially two that are very soft when it comes to how they want to be approached. They don't want to be approached as anybody. They want to be approached as they're the best in the game, and you can't disrespect me.
I think Phoenix is a really good option.
Monty Williams is a good coach in Phoenix. I really like him. I mean, that may be a little biased because I'm a Sixers fan, but I mean, I think he's a good option there. Phoenix would have been a great team this year if Ayton didn't get suspended.
Yep, I agree too. I think Ayton and Booker could be one of the best young duos in the NBA here in the future. I think they're both. There was a big stat I saw on Ayton. He's the first player since Shaq to be averaging in his age of 21 season like 19 and 12. I mean, obviously he's done it in limited games, but he's talented. A lot of people kind of gave the Suns a lot of crap because they took him number 1 over Trae Young and Luka Doncic, but I think he's still going to be a very, very, very good player in the league.
He fits better with Booker than those guys, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you put Popovich in that system, even with Monty Williams, we respect as Sixers fans, I think Greg Popovich would ultimately really level up those guys' games. So I think that'd be an interesting spot for Greg Popovich. But I think we both agree about the Nets. I don't think it's a great fit unless they can somehow configure that roster around young talent, not guys in their prime. Like especially with head cases like Kyrie and KD.
Yeah, because Popovich always got Tim Duncan, developed him, and like he's more of a developer than he is a star coach. Like he's not a guy that like if I was forming that team down in Miami with D Wade, LeBron, and Chris Bosh, I would not want Popovich coaching that team. I want Popovich coming into a situation with a bunch of young guys and developing them to become superstars like he did in San Antonio. He's a guy that can develop players and create his own dynasty, which is I think he could do in a Minnesota or a Phoenix.
I agree. Well, it seems like a good place to end our 10th episode. We had a pretty interesting discussion today. Obviously, a lot of heated debates, a lot of disagreements today, per usual with Justin and I here on the Build Up podcast. But yep, make sure to like, subscribe this video, follow us everywhere where we're at, and hope you all had a good 4th of July weekend. We're out.